All right, everybody, we will get it going. Thanks everybody for hopping on. Good afternoon / good evening to everyone. I have 2 after the hour here in Colorado, so 5:02 Mountain Time. But I know we're coming in from all over the place. Thanks so much for hopping on. Super excited to be hosting you all. This is your Multisport Nationals festival presented by Toyota Super Sprint Time Trial race briefing. So if you're looking for the time trial race, this is where you're supposed to be. We do have quite a few other invites and registration links kind of floating around out there, which will come later, but this one will specifically be for a super sprint time trial race at Multisport Nationals in Irving. Just a couple housekeeping notes before we dive into it. If you could please mute yourself for now. We'll have a Q&A coming up later after we get through about 15 minutes or so of PowerPoint slides and race introduction. But if you could please mute yourself just to kind of limit the feedback and things like that as we're working through it. Just be mindful of the video if you're on that video. And then, just to be sure that we can keep focus on the PowerPoint slides. And then just please note too, I'll take about 15 to 20 minutes of PowerPoint slides kind of going through race content and things of that nature. We'll walk through the course, race schedule, some race mechanics, and then we'll dive into some Q&A after that. So I do have an hour set for the recording, but we might, only get through 15 minutes and then have a few questions. It might be done within a half hour. We'll kind of see how the time ends up. So if you give me 1 second, I'm just going to walk through. I think I mute Lance quick. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. Get back there. So as I mentioned, this is your race briefing for the time trial race only. This will cover the race mechanics, schedule, course natures that is specific to the time trial briefing. There will be a more general briefing that is pre-recorded that will come out in that last athlete newsletter the week of the race that will cover some more general notes for the event weekend, things like timing chips, packet pickup, and other general logistical pieces, parking, hotels, things of that nature. But the purpose of this briefing is to really dive into the specifics of the time trial race only. This is the first year that we've done individual briefings per race, given that there are 9 separate races throughout Multisport Nationals and throughout that weekend. We thought it would be pretty good and pretty pertinent to cover each race individually, just to be sure that everyone is prepared, especially for those of you that will be competing in more than one race, to kind of just understand the nuances between the races and the logistical pieces to the course and the venue and things of that nature. This is the first one that we're doing. So we're kind of doing them in chronological order of what race week or what race weekend will be like. So in race terms, this will be the first race on Thursday, April 28th, starting at 12:30 p.m. And then we'll have the draft legal triathlon briefing coming up this Thursday, which will be the next race on Friday morning. So just wanted to reference that. These will all be recorded. This one and then the remaining 7 will all be recorded. It'll all be sent out with that general race briefing in that last athlete newsletter. We'll post them to the Facebook page, post them on YouTube, things of that nature. So if you do miss anything, if you have any other questions that don't get answered, this will not be the last opportunity to get those questions answered. There'll be plenty of opportunity after that. So my name is Matt Rieger. I missed the first bullet point for the first time. My name is Matt Rieger. I will be your race director. I'm an events manager here at USA Triathlon. Was an events manager from 2014 to 2018, and then took a little bit of a hiatus and then am rejoining the team. So super excited to kind of be kicking it off and getting back out of the gate, post COVID, and then kind of renewing the race direction career with a big premier race that we are doing for the first time. So with that, we'll jump right into it. We'll get going with the race end schedule. So just kind of wanted to quick highlight the overall race schedule for the weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Obviously, like I said, we'll kick off with the Super Sprint Time Trial Nationals on Thursday, April 28th, right out of the gate. at 12:30 p.m. that day. So just kind of wanted to highlight in the greater context of the weekend. Moving on to a little more detailed schedule for everybody. So I included Wednesday, April 27th here as well, with the assumption that a good chunk of athletes and folks will be coming in that day, or for the local folks that day, where we do offer packet pickup on Wednesday, April 27th from 1 to 6 p.m. If you are unable to get in by that 6 o'clock p.m. timeframe on Wednesday, we do have a packet pickup and expo from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Thursday, April 28th. The only caveat to this is that if you are competing in that super sprint race, we do ask that you have those packets picked up by 11 a.m. Prior to that 12:30 p.m. start time for that first wave. This is kind of just to accommodate timing operations, packet pickup operations, making sure that you have enough time to get from your packet and get from that station over to check your bike in and things of that nature. So please just note that 11 a.m. So you'll have 2 hours Thursday morning to come pick up your packet, get your stickers on your bike, get your stickers on your person, put your time and chip on, work your way through the line, pick up and things of that nature. So just be cognizant of that time frame if you're coming Thursday morning, when taking into account parking and things of that nature. We also will have a bag check open at that same time as well. So no bags will be allowed in transition. But we will have a bag check opportunity available with clear plastic bags as well. Moving on to the details of the actual time trial race. So from 11 to 12:25, transition area will be open for super sprint time trial bike check-in. This is for both genders, all waves, all athletes during that hour and a half period. Like usual, we'll have transition stickered with your number that you'll receive at packet pickup, and you'll be directed to your respective spot that allocates to that number and be able to place your bike and other pieces, just like any other triathlon race. So with that, we will close down 5 minutes before that 12:30 p.m. start time. At 12:30, we will kick it off with the males 15 to 30 on wave 1, and then we will slowly transition down to that last start time of 1:05 p.m. for females 60 plus. And I'll touch on the starting procedures in another slide and kind of how that will all work within those waves. But just kind of wanted to highlight the overall timing of those races. And since it is a non-draft race, we were able to do the males and females kind of in combination with one another. Moving forward, as we draw closer to the end of the race, we'll start the super sprint time trial bike checkout at approximately 2 p.m. So we'll kind of I say approximately, because some of it will be dependent upon when that bike course actually clears and when we can safely and effectively allow folks back in to transition to get their bike after that last biker has come back through. And then after that, we're looking at a course closure at 2:30 p.m. So pretty quick race, as you guys definitely know and are aware of. Super fun format and super quick. So we're definitely looking forward to it. Moving on to some of the race mechanics that we'll talk through. So do a little bit of a course walkthrough. We'll go through starting procedures, and then I'll touch briefly on the rules and officiating as well, just to kind of give you guys some high notes as well. So overall course walkthrough. As you can see on the map, we're looking at a 250-meter swim, a 5K 1-lap bike course, and then a 1.2K 1-lap run course. So like I said, very quick course, very quick hitting. Down here, kind of in the bottom right of the map, in the purple, is where Levy Plaza is. That's the main venue, main area of race operations, and where the transition area will be located. And you can kind of see a blown out version of it on the left side of the map here, the BOA transition zone. That really shows where the swim start will be, swim in, and kind of just shows the overall race mechanics that will operate for this specific race. One thing that you'll note, and one thing that'll be pretty prevalent once we do get on site. So the star, this red star here, is where the finish line will be for the super sprint time trial. There will be a separate finish line that's not noted on this map for the majority of the other races. So this red star, there will be a big it's gonna be a big black arch located here. That's USA Triathlon branded and Finish Line branded. That will be set up for the finish line. It will not be at that main trussing, that main kind of national championship trussing that we have. If you're familiar with any of our other races, we needed to make this adjustment just due to race logistics and kind of how the courses operate with one another, coming in and out of the venue. So there's a couple races and the time trial and the relay being the other one where we have a separate finish line area. But we'll still have all the necessary provisions there as far as water, Gatorade, finisher medals, things of that nature to still make it pretty prominent. So kind of going back to Levy Plaza, the swim start down here in the yellow, the quick 250-meter course, there'll be 2 yellow turn buoys. They're pretty small on the map, but you'll go out, make a quick left, and then another quick left and come back in. It'll be very straightforward. You'll be able to sight those buoys, immediately upon starting, for that 250-meter course that will involve those 2 yellow Zone 3 branded swim buoys. Upon coming back in, you'll transition onto the bike, where you'll head onto the bike course and to head out towards Promenade Parkway here and Highway 348 to make your turnaround and to come back in to the venue. This whole bike course traverses Las Colinas Boulevard. If you're from the area, you're probably pretty familiar with it. But if you're not from the area, there's a good chance that the hotel you're staying in is around this general area. So there's a good chance that you will have driven this road either before or on race morning to get to some of the parking options. Very flat, very quick course. I think that there's a little bit of a hill in between O'Connor and Promenade here, but it's not much at all. It's all very, very flat. I would be surprised, if there's more than maybe 75 feet of gain throughout the entire course for the out and back. For both the outbound and inbound bike lanes, you'll have a vehicle lane wide of course to ride in. When you do exit the venue, you will be going northbound in the southbound traffic lanes. So it'll be a little unfamiliar. You'll be riding against traffic. And for the outbound lane specifically on the bike course, you will be riding outbound in the vehicle lane closest to the median. And in the other vehicle lane directly to your left, there will be vehicles driving southbound. So just to note that, not to be alarmed by it, it'll be very well separated by cones, barricades, and there'll be Irving PD officers out there that will be managing that traffic flow and ensuring that everything is safely and effectively closed down, and that all those vehicles are proceeding as best that they can.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah. Yep.
Sure. So we're going to be going British style, essentially, right? Up and back. So then slower riders need to keep to their right, which is at what, a white or yellow dashed lane marker?
So it will actually be at the curb. So you will be, for the slower athletes, you will be staying closer to the median on both directions. Since you are correct, we're riding British style. Yep.
Okay.
So you'll be both outbound and inbound bike traffic. You will be in the lane closest to the center median. So if you are that slower traffic keeping right, you will stay as close to that median as possible.
Okay, so there won't be people coming at each other with only the painted line between them.
Oh, correct. It'll be separated by a median.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So coming back to that inbound bike traffic, as I just noted, you'll have that vehicular lane, that lane closest to the median coming back inbound. For this stretch coming back inbound, we have the luxury where there will be a buffer lane. So there'll be a dead lane in the middle of the road that's separating the vehicular traffic from our bike course. Just with the way the lane configurations and the road widths worked out, we do have that luxury coming back inbound on the bike course, but we don't have it going outbound, unfortunately. So just something to keep in mind. Really kind of the bottom line is that you'll have a vehicle lane wide, lanes closest to the median going outbound and inbound. So then you'll be separated by that median. So we will not have oncoming bike traffic in close proximity to one another. So this will be very well marked. It'll be very heavily coned. There'll be proper signage, wayfinding signage, arrows, turnaround signage, police staffing, things of that nature out on the course. So don't worry about finding your way, or if it sounds confusing, as I'm explaining it. Once you do get on site and start seeing the cone lines set up and drive the area, it'll definitely start to be a little more familiar. After that, proceeding back into transition, getting off your bike, transitioning over to the run. You'll come out of transition in very close proximity to where the bike out was, but you'll have the run out area here. You'll run out of transition and you'll proceed southbound in the southbound Las Colinas lane. And then you'll make a turnaround right at Lake Carolyn here and then proceed back northbound on northbound Las Colinas. So somewhat of a similar dynamic as far as the lanes go for the run course, but we do have the luxury of not running British style. We'll be running with vehicular traffic, if you will, for the run course. So you'll make that turnaround and then head back into the venue. And you'll cross back by where you proceeded onto the swim start into the finish line. So run course, very similar. It's a much quicker. Obviously, it's 1.2K compared to 5K, but there's not one single hill on the run course. You can actually probably see the entire venue as you're running. So as far as visualization and the optics of everything, it's pretty friendly in that regard. So from there, we'll move on to the starting procedures. So with the time trial, and this will be the first year that, at least USA Triathlon has done a time trial national championship. I know that there could be some nerves as far as how we're going to start everybody and how the dynamics are going to work, but rest assured we do have a good plan in place. And please note too, after this briefing on the starting dynamic, there'll be a huge staff presence and volunteer presence on site that will help direct you and be sure that you're lining up in the proper area, in tandem with announcements and things like that. So, don't worry at all. If you still have some questions, we'll be sure to take care of everything on site and be sure that we're getting everybody to the proper spots on site too. So, just to kind of get our bearings here, Levy Plaza, this little horseshoe kind of green space here. The middle of this is where transition will be. As you'll see on the map, I have the time trial start noted and then the swim exit noted. The buoys are marked on here, but there'll be 2 yellow turn buoys, as I mentioned in the previous slide, marked out here for the time trial start. So there'll be a orange zone 3 arch marking both of these areas for the start. It'll obviously say swim start at it. So there'll be kind of a marker for you guys to see and to proceed to, upon your wave start time. Right off of, so this is a little bit of I'll say kind of a retaining wall type feel, where from this concrete wall on the side of Levy Plaza down to the lake, to the top of water is about a 2-foot drop. And so what we'll have in place is we'll have essentially about a 10-foot by 16-foot section of dock in place by that time trial start here. So we'll be able to proceed under the arch from the wall. So from the concrete Levy Plaza walking path onto a gangway, onto the dock, and then the dock will only be 6 inches or so above the top level of the water. So we'll have kind of a nice smooth, transition going from wall to dock to water for everybody to proceed into. So you won't be jumping straight off the retaining wall, with a 2-foot drop involved with that. We won't do that at all. So for the time trial start. So for your respective wave, so the first wave is 15 through 30, starting at 12:30 p.m. We will at that time, or shortly before that time, we will line everybody up in age order. So at your respective start time, so 12:30 p.m. is the 15 through 30 male age group. We will line up starting with the 15-year-olds going to 16, 17 and onward up to 30. For each age group. So each age group will line up with sort themselves out relatively quickly. We do it with our youth age group athletes. So I'm confident that if we can get our 6 and 7-year-olds to do it, we can get everybody else to do it. So we'll have staff there as well that'll be sure to make announcements and to help sort everybody out. But we'll be starting in that way, or at least lining up that way. And at each respective wave start time, we will start sending people off in 5-second intervals. So how it'll work is if it's 12:30 and I'm in the 15 to 30 age group and I'm a 16-year-old, maybe I'm 10th in line. At 12:30 p.m., Tim Yount, our announcer, who I'm sure a lot of you know, will start cueing people with a karate chop or a whistle of some form, and you will jump into the water feet first. There will be no diving allowed, and you will commence with your race. From there, at every 5-second intervals, he'll cue a new person along. So if I'm 10th in line, it might take, if I'm a 16-year-old that's 10th in line, it might take 45 to 60 seconds to get to me before I then proceed through the start line, and we'll work that timing backwards for everybody to get through. Now, obviously this may run into some timing issues just based off of how the exact, to the second timing works out, where 12:30 p.m. starts the 15 to 30-year-olds, then moving on to 12:35. We have a new age group that's lining up right behind them. So the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth waves, etc., your time trial may not start exactly at the noted wave time, but we've lined them up and we've done the math as best we can to try and predict based off of intervals, course density, and what we're expecting for final registrations to make it as accurate as possible. So if you're in that, I'll say 12:55 wave, that you can accurately expect to be lined up and starting very, very shortly, if not at 12:55, very, very shortly after. So just keep that in mind, bear with us a little bit on the timing. If you get backed up just a little bit, we're going to do our best, and the wave starts may change based off what that final registration count is. If we can condense anyone for better timing purposes and things like that, we definitely will. So just note that, and obviously keep in mind that it's a time trial. So excuse me, there will be a timing match. So even if you're behind that actual start time, it won't affect your actual finish time. So just keep that in mind as we're working through it as well. So, oops, wrong button there. From there, we'll head on to rules and officiating. Keep in mind with this, Mark Turner, our commissioner of officials, has set up a pretty in-depth rules specific briefing for this race. So that will be kind of the tried and true video or recording to watch for more of the rules briefing. This one would be more of a race operations briefing. So just keep that in mind. And I know some of you guys have been talking with him too a little bit, but I just wanted to mention a few things kind of very top level. One of them is water temperatures. So for purposes of this race, so the time trial race specifically, we will be operating under USA Triathlon rules. There are some other races in the weekend that are operating under World Triathlon rules. And really what this designation has a bearing on is that wetsuit cutoff temperature for water temperatures. And so for this race, that cutoff will be 78 degrees or higher, will be no wetsuits, and 78 below will be wetsuit allowed. I don't imagine any world where we reached that 78-degree cutoff. Like I said before we officially started, we're looking for like a 66 to 70-degree water temperature based on historical data. Maybe so if we get a big heat wave, maybe it gets up to 71, 72. But I really don't think that there's any way that we're going to get up to 78 degrees and have that wetsuit cut off for this race. So definitely be preparing for a wetsuit legal race for this super sprint time trial. As I mentioned before as well, this will be non-drafting. So it'll be a non-drafting race. And then you will see some officials on motos out on the bike course. And we're going to move forward with on-course notifications for penalties. So if you were at Age Group Nationals last year, we kind of rolled this out there for the first time. And really what it'll come down to is if you do receive a penalty, the official on the moto will kind of make best efforts to warn you on the bike course. And then there'll be a tent in the bike in chute before you get to transition where you'll serve that penalty. So just keep that in mind. You'll probably see that penalty tent set up in the bike in chute, as you're making your race preparations on Thursday morning and things of that nature. So to kind of just keep that in mind as you're operating out there. And there will be, a whiteboard in the penalty tent to warn you as well. So if for some reason you don't hear anything on the bike course or are unsure, you can always stop in and ask them and they'll have you serve the penalty in that tent. So. Wanted to highlight the venue map quick as well, just to kind of give you guys some more bearings. Keep in mind as you're looking at this, we have multiple ins and outs that are really trying to apply to the entire race weekend. Not all of these are going to be active at the same time, especially for the super sprint time trial. Really kind of what you guys would focus on for the super sprint time trial is this blue star up on the top right. That'll be the swim start, the swim in, bike out and bike in, run out, and then this white star will be your finish. This is also posted online with the other course maps as well. So feel free to take a look, kind of start to familiarize yourself with the venue. You'll have the bag drop tent down here, number 3, and we'll look to do bike check-in right next to that in the swim in chute. So, kind of trying to make everything as efficient as possible for you guys for the venue layout. And then just a couple miscellaneous notes that I had as we touched on air and water temperatures. So average air temp during this time, just based off National Weather Service, is around 70 degrees, maybe heating up to 72, 73 by midday. But then you're looking at 60 to 65 in the early morning. And then, as I mentioned, the average water temperature in Lake Carolyn is that 66 to 70 degrees. And we'll have that posted morning of and communicated morning of appropriately by announcements, social media, and then at the venue as well. And then one other thing I wanted to mention too, that I've kind of been mentioning at all the briefings that we've already done is that, when you guys are here at the hotels, visiting local restaurants, we're having a pretty big impact in the Las Colinas area. That entire kind of neighborhood that the bike course and the venue is in, that's called Las Colinas within the city of Irving. So just be sure to take in some time to thank the hotel staff, thank the restaurants that you go to. We're shutting down their roadways for 3.5 to 4 days. So just want to make sure that we're being considerate of the local community and kind of doing everything that we can to, to make our presence known, but in a good way, so that we can keep coming back year after year. So with that, we may have some answers for you. I know I haven't had a chance to look in the chat as we've been talking, but I will unshare my screen so I can see the chat. And then if folks do have questions, there is a hand raise function. I know that that we can utilize a little bit, or if people want to kind of start coming off of mute, and myself and Cody will do our best.
I have a question. This is regarding the open water swim race that's immediately afterwards. I'm doing both. So I just wanted to know how I can arrange when I'm done with the triathlon piece, where can I put my stuff? because then I have to go to the swim start within a, short period of time. What's
Yep,
the
yeah.
logistics behind that?
Yeah, good question. So we do have that bag check area that you can utilize. And if you do, given the circumstances, if there's a surplus of gear based off of switching races, things like that, we can work certain situations out where we can, have extra bags at the bag check area to utilize. And then what we can do is for your bike, if you are traveling alone, and if you're a solo athlete, if there's no friends, family, etc., we're aware both for this race change, but then also for the race change for draft legal triathlon to a aquathlon, that you may not have anything to do with your bike. So we've worked out a little bit of a system where we'll have a couple racks in transition to house those bikes for the folks doing the open water swim, in this case, right after the time trial race. But this will be only for athletes that are doing both races. This will not be, kind of a bike corral for athletes to leave their bikes while they're going out to dinner or anything of that nature. It will only be for athletes that are then progressing onto the open water swim, since we're aware that there may, especially if you're traveling solo, we're aware that there may not be anything to do with your bike during that time. So my only encouragement would be, if you do have the ability, if there is a friend or family member traveling with you that can look after your bike while you're doing that race, I would just encourage that, if possible, just to save space in transition. But we will have a couple extra racks available.
Matt, I'll read you some of the questions here. Talk about super sprint being non-drafting and aero bars.
Correct. Yep. So non-drafting. And again, if you're looking for more detailed clarification, it'd be good to reach out to Paul Brandt. He's our DL lead, but aero bars are allowed in a non-draft race. I personally am not 100% up to, the length and the exact dimensions of what those aero bars are. But aero bars are allowed in the non-draft race. So they would be allowed in the super sprint time trial race.
Yeah. And I'll add, we have some helpful PDF documents on our website, on the info page of the Multisport Festival website under draft legal, that will be helpful for anybody who wants to know more details on those on draft legal rules for the other draft legal races. But this is not drafting, like Matt said. All right, so let's see here. Just reading through the other questions here. Yeah, the mixed relay, that's correct. Somebody mentioned the mixed relay, which is on Saturday. The mixed relay on Saturday is draft legal, different from this. We have a question. Are most people wearing a wetsuit for such a short swim? I guess, I don't know if we know that. Matt, any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was actually, as I was talking and explaining the starting procedures and talking about the 250 meter swim, to be perfectly honest, I had the same question in my mind. And I don't know. To be perfectly honest, I've done one triathlon in my life. I'm not super familiar with kind of the more coaching perspective to that. I would think still, yes, I would think the time that you save with a wetsuit, and the buoyancy and the energy and things like that, would cancel out any time that you would save from needing to take it off and strip it. That you would essentially gain an advantage by wearing a wetsuit compared to not. But it would definitely be a good question to post to maybe a Facebook group or some other athletes. But that would be my take on it.
Swim familiarization.
We unfortunately do not have, based off permitting and just kind of overall race logistics, we don't have a swim course familiarization for this race. The swim course familiarization that we have one later Thursday evening from 4 to 5 p.m. And then on Friday evening as well. I think that one is from 3:30 to 5 p.m. So unfortunately, for the first race of the weekend, we did not have anything available, or were unable to secure anything for permit sake and just kind of overall, on water safety assets. But it is something that we're definitely taking into consideration, moving into 2023 as we plan as well.
Yeah, from Ralph, can you just talk about the start and finish area, since the finish for for this time trial is a different area that's also pretty close to the swim start.
Yeah, for sure. Let me see if I can share my Google Earth. Give me 1 second. All right, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so bear with me. I know Google Earth, this might be sensitive to people's internet connections. So if it's lagging a little bit, I do apologize. But I just figured this would probably be the best way to explain it. So as we've been talking about Levy Plaza down here, this will be where the main transition area is here in the center of this massive green space. You know, you have bike in, bike out, run out. As I zoom in closer here, so this red line right here, directly to the south of the lake, is the run course to the finish line. The finish line, let's see if I can mark it quick. 1 sec. There we go. So that run course, that red line will lead directly into this relay and time trial finish where that's marked with the pin. There'll be a big black arch here. And then there'll be, so this time trial start is where that orange arch will be. So this little concrete area down here, it's hard to see. I can scroll in a little more. This is about, 12 feet wide. So what we'll be able to do is we'll line everybody up, likely going back south along the lake, along the wall here. And then you'll proceed through the starting procedures, as I mentioned, through the arch, onto the dock in the lake, and then into the water. And you'll come back over and you'll have your swim exit here. And what we did, and this is one of the main reasons why we had to have the finish line here, kind of in the middle of this horseshoe, is because we're still going to have athletes exiting the water here and going into transition while we have athletes finishing here. So we couldn't have athletes running all the way through this entire horseshoe over to this where the main finish line will be, because there'll be a crossover with athletes coming in off the swim, exiting while athletes are starting to finish. So for that reason, we have an arch up here, and we're stopping before we get to the swim exit, where that potential crossover would be. So I hope that helps a little bit, maybe clear a few things up.
Yep, I think so. Let's see here. Let's get through the rest of the questions in the chat here. Will there be a swim warm-up area?
Again, unfortunately not for this race. This is the sole race that we don't have any swim warm-up opportunities, just due to the overall permitting and race logistics of the weekend. So again, we do apologize for that, but we won't have that available for this race.
Right. Can you talk about tri-bike transport and just where that will be, and noting that the bikes, their service sets their bike up for them?
Yep. So they will be right next to the bag check tent on site. And I believe they will be getting into town Monday, I believe. And so they will be right next to the bag check, kind of set up with in their respective perimeter with the bikes that you had shipped. The best way, the best source of information for the specifics of what they'll offer is definitely them. But as far as their setup, they'll be there starting Monday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, you can come in and get those bikes, work with them as far as the setup goes. But it'll be, perfectly accessible, be very well signed. And it'll have a pretty big area kind of close to water's edge down there where that swim exit area was, kind of right by the bag check area too, for accessing them.
Perfect. Looks like we answered that question. So to answer the question about draft, because the event is not draft legal, that's correct, that TT bikes, tri-bikes are legal in this race. There's a question from Andrea about the wave times. Yeah, as a 16-year-old, we've got on the website on April 28th, a 16-year-old would be in the third wave at 12:40 p.m. Wave 3, females 15 to 34. What are the clothing requirements? Matt, can you talk on the clothing requirements?
Hold on, I'm just reading through the required cover the tours with the Yeah, so for this race, we are under USA Triathlon rules, and it's not draft legal, so it would be the latter with with the allowance to wear a Speedo or anything like that. It's not those international draft legal rules where they're a little more strict. So for this race, it would be the latter. But the other races throughout the weekend that are governed by World Triathlon rules would have those more strict requirements.
Perfect. Karen's asking, when does the open water swim competition start? So that starts at 3 p.m. on Thursday. So about a half hour after the very end of the course closing of the time trial race. And then you're asking about keeping bikes in transition overnight. The answer would be no. We will not be keeping any bikes in transition area overnight. Everybody's bike is going to have to be removed each night and brought back each morning for that. Question on gear restrictions, any items that are not allowed. And Matt, do you want to take that one?
I guess it's a little broad. I think we could go through a lot of examples that aren't allowed. I would say, as a general statement, pieces of gear that are, respective to your race, shoes, hydration, snacks, nutrition, race belts, all those kind of, I'll say general race items, are allowed. There's no marking pieces that are allowed. I'll say that one, there's no balloons or flags or pieces of tape or those kinds of things to mark your spot. Those are not allowed. There will be no bags allowed, or we'll at least be allowed to be left in transition during the race. You can bring them in to set up your spot, but anything that's left over as far as bags or things that would not be utilized for the race, that's why we do have that bag check tent available.
Perfect. Just accessing the swim start with the race already going on, just for the later waves. Can you comment on that?
Most definitely. Yep. And that'll be a little bit, to be perfectly honest, a kind of a common theme throughout the weekend is just the overall kind of density of the venue, I'll say, and getting in and out while the races are taking place. There's bike in lanes, run out lanes, things of that nature. And so what we've kind of set up are spectator crossings throughout the venue, and they'll be marked by signage throughout the venue for each respective race. And so we'll utilize those, and they'll be staffed with volunteers in order to get down and cross the course to get down to the swim start. There will likely be a couple open areas, just based off of the race changeovers. So I'll kind of put a blanket statement out there that just kind of says, whenever, if you do realize that you may potentially be crossing a course, just be cognizant, as far as where you're walking, who might be running on the path, things of that nature. We're working hard to keep, those kind of open areas to a very low amount and to a minimum. But just kind of with how dense the venue is, there might be a couple that end up happening just as far as, where we're able to place barricade or where we're not able to place barricade. But overall, we'll have barricade that marks a closed course, and there'll be a crossing to get down there.
Elizabeth is asking if at Worlds is the super sprint draft legal, and I believe it's not, right?
That one I don't know for sure. There will be a Team USA specific briefing. I believe it's next. I'm just looking at the schedule. It's Wednesday, April 20th. that will encompass all the races that take place at Multisport Festival and all the world championships that they qualify to. So that would be the best briefing to tune into for Team USA related questions.
Yep. And of course, we can always email Team USA at usatriathlon.org, and Lindsay or one of our team members can help address that as well. Apologize, we don't have that exact answer for the Worlds question at the moment. But the next question, where is Worlds? This race qualifies for Worlds 2023 Worlds, which is in Pontevedra, Spain. So yes, correct on the folks who mentioned Pontevedra in the chat, and it's a good point that we do have this information and a ton of other general race information on the website. It's multisportfestival.com. That just redirects to our website. So multisportfestival.com. We've got more than you ever want to know on there probably. So please take a look at that, read through everything, and of course we're always happy to answer any other questions. So the mixed, somebody's asking about the mixed relay, Neil, on Saturday. The mixed relay is draft legal, so time trial bikes and aero bars would be prohibited on Saturday for the mixed relay. Somebody asking about parking, so that's a good question, and I've been leading that one on our end. We'll be sending out a parking map soon on that. It is likely that you'll have to pay a small fee for the garages nearby. There's not really any surface lots that are free or within walking distance. So we'll be sending out information soon on the parking garages that are nearby. Also, of course, if you're staying at a hotel nearby, our suggestion will be to ride your bike or walk or run to the venue. But we'll have more information on parking coming out soon in its own email, and we'll cover that once it's solidified in the other briefings as well. Matt, can you talk about spectator areas?
Yeah, most definitely. So, along that Las Colinas corridor for the bike course especially is going to be a great spectator area, especially in between Levy Plaza and then O'Connor Boulevard. That's really kind of what I would say is the heart of the bike course. Everything on Las Colinas to the north of Levy Plaza there is a good spectator area for the bike course. Other good area is going to be, I'll show my screen again. 1 second. All right, can you see that Google Earth?
Yes.
Another good spectator area, especially for the swim, but it'll also be good to kind of just see the general transition flow, is this grass segment in between transition and the lake. Those patches will be good to see the swim and then the swim exit into TA and CTA going onto the bike. And then on the flip side of that, after your athlete gets out onto the bike, this main kind of main apron, I'll call it here, where the expo will be. This will be the best area to watch the bike and the run course. And then the finish line here as well, which is not marked on the map, but it'll be kind of on the left side of the venue here. So essentially this entire concrete corridor is going to be a really good spot to watch the race as well.
Perfect.
I'd like to ask a question because I don't know how to send a chat.
Sure.
Okay, I would like to know why they decide to have the oldest people go last when there's a course closing. I've been eliminated a couple of times because I couldn't make a cutoff. Why do you think we should be going last when there's a cutoff time?
So that's a great question, and definitely one that we've tried to balance with the cutoffs a little bit as well, to be cognizant of those last folks starting. I'll say the main reason that we do it are safety concerns, just as far as, having 20 to 25 to 30-year-olds coming up on 70 to 80-year-olds, both in the swim and on the bike. We've gotten ourselves in a lot of situations where that creates a really unsafe environment, especially as the races get bigger. When you have big packs of, not so much packs on the bike, but if you have big packs on the swim starting to overtake, a pack of 75 to 80-year-old athletes. It just creates a really, unsafe situation, to be perfectly honest. And so that's really the underlying reason. I will say that we're constantly looking for ways, one, to extend the cutoff time to accommodate that, but then also to spread out the waves enough or format the races enough where we can accommodate that and have you guys go off in the earlier wave. So I definitely do apologize. I know it's not perfect at all, but that's kind of the main reasoning for that.
Perfect. A question from Anthony. Again on draft legal. So just a reminder, the super sprint is not draft legal. So no drafting in the super sprint, but for the other races over the weekend that are draft legal, that's correct. Arrow bars would be prohibited in a draft legal race. And we'll cover more about that when we have those briefings as well. From Ian, what is it? The cutoff time. So for the super sprint, the cutoff time is 2:30 p.m. That day, and we've got that noted on the schedule as well, where it says course closes at 2:30. Now, if you're really close to the venue, right, and you're going to be within the venue a couple minutes after that time, we'll very likely let you finish. But it'd be a different story if you were just finishing the bike and it's 2:30 and we have to close. We have to get people off the roads to reopen it. That would be a different story for the cutoff. So, but we do have those noted on the schedule. And then a question on riding the course before or outside of race times, Matt.
Yeah, most definitely. It's just at your own risk. It just be rules of the road. I will say they're fairly friendly. It's not a very dense or high trafficked area. There's a lot of businesses and, maybe some high pedestrian traffic around the rush hour timeframes. But I mean, me, Cody, the entire events team have all been down there. And there really, to be perfectly honest, hasn't been a ton of traffic around. I don't know if that's because of COVID and people not coming back to the office still, or what the exact reasoning is, but they're all very nice roads, very good roads. I don't really would anticipate any issues riding, with the traffic on those roads. I would say the only area that gets a little tight is like Carolyn Parkway, because they have a tram line next to it, but the bike course, doesn't traverse like Carolyn Parkway anyway. It's only the run course. So yeah, for sure. It's just at your own risk.
Perfect. That's all the questions I see in the chat. I think we're about at the end of the time, so I'll just remind everybody that you can find all the race information. We continue to update, add more information and updates daily, but you can find all the race information on the website at multisportfestival.com. And I'll add that we'll also have an app, the USA Triathlon Events app. So for those of you with smartphones, that's free to download for Google, for Android phones or Apple phones. Just search for the USA Triathlon Events app. We'll have all the information posted in there as well. And it's also a great way to track your friends, for your family to track you. A really cool tool to have. You can also see anybody who's tracking you, or if you're tracking somebody, you can see roughly where that person is estimated to be on the course. I have a course map on there that'll give a rough idea of where that person is at on the course. So great tool to have. Definitely encourage everybody to download that, and we'll also we can send notifications to you through that as well if anything were to happen, or if there were to be changes or other information we need to share with you during the race. So definitely encourage everybody to download the USA Triathlon Events app. But that's all the questions I see for now. I'll hand it back to you, Matt. Yeah,
for sure. Thanks everybody for hopping on. Really appreciate it. Still super excited to have you guys down in Irving. It'll be my first event, since the COVID pandemic, as far as race direction. So I'm super excited personally to get back at it, and kind of get some good stability, see some people in person, see the excitement of race nerves and all those types of things. So, really excited and very pleased with how everything's coming together, and can't wait to see everybody down there. Keep in mind, this recording will be posted, and it'll also be sent with all the other race briefing recordings in that last athlete newsletter. But we'll also post it on the Facebook page sooner so you guys can review. Keep in mind too, that we'll have that kind of general race briefing that I'll send out. That'll be a pre-recorded kind of webinar style that'll go over parking, hotels, packet pickup, wristbands, like all that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind as well. Then as always, national events at usatriathlon.org. I'll drop that in the chat. Is a great resource if you guys do have questions. Feel free to send them in. So thanks everybody again. We will see you down in Irving and can't wait to see you in person. Have a great night.
Looks like one last question from Barbara. Where's the award ceremony? It's on Thursday. The award ceremony will be right at Levy Plaza. So for that Thursday race, for races on Friday and Saturday, the award ceremony will be at the Texas Lottery Plaza, which is just down the street, part of the Toyota Music Factory. So we've got that information posted on the website and on the schedule page as well.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the night.
If you want to go